It was like I'd been starved for my whole life. That was how I felt, and it was just like food. This is food. This my body was just saying, "Well, you discovered food."
Frank, how did you find carnivore?
Hi, Dave. Well, I guess it's best to go back to my childhood because I need to marry up a part of my father's story that I would like to bring into the equation here. So, I was labelled a daydreamer at school, um, and found school very difficult, very very hard to concentrate. Always felt like I was behind. Um, had a great social life. Made lot. It was always easy for me to make friends, and accumulated many over the years. um, Going to high school, I found um, drugs very very early on. If I'm really honest with you, at the age of 12, um, and that just kind of escalated all the way through school until they got harder and harder, and then mixed with alcohol. And um, so I came out of school without any GCSEs, um, and didn't really know what to do with my life. I'd started DJing at the age of 12 also, and um, I loved music. So I went to music technology school for a few years. Um, I didn't really make a career out of that. I was DJing in clubs here and there, but that was how that went. And I just carried on with your average retail and call center jobs like this until I was about 25. So through this whole period, yeah, and sort of the drugs continued until it got to, yeah, around about 25, and I realized something needed to change. It got really serious. So I went to Thailand for a long break. I'd never been out of Europe, and I went for 2 months. Um, I'd actually picked up a deep passion for cookery around the age of 16, as I grew up with not the best food, and not my mum's fault. She just didn't like cooking. So I discovered restaurants around that age and thought, wow, this is a whole new world. And so I just started cooking. And I would pretty much cook after work for up to 4 hours a time. Every cuisine. I've got 300 or 400 cookery books. So the link to Thailand was very deep in my heart by then because I was really into Thai cuisine, and I was spending many hours making elaborate Thai dishes because it's a very complex cuisine. So off I went anyway, and absolutely loved it. Time of my life, a couple of months with a couple of mates. Came back, and then it was back to a call center, and it was like, can't be doing this. So I'd met people that that oh sorry, there were people from my hometown Brighton that were out there teaching, and I could see you can make it work. So I just, after 6 months, I was like, right, I'm gonna sod off, and off I went to Thailand. So a big leap of faith. I'd never moved out of my mum's house until then. Cried on the plane. Um, Got there, massive culture shock for a couple of days. Then uh, did my TS teaching English as a second language. Is that what it's called these days?
Yeah.
Course in Bangkok, and off I went. And first few years were very stressful. It was not something that came easy to me. I had massive class sizes of 45, no air conditioning for the first year. And I carried on drinking as a kind of release to deal with the kind of the sort of stressful pressure of that. That carried on for about 2 years, and it got so serious that I ended up in hospital for a couple of days with gastroenteritis. Um, and I came out, and I was like, and it was back to that stage again. Something's got to change. So I I thought, some kind of exercise has got to be beneficial. So I picked up running, and I pretty much didn't stop running for the next 2 years. Um, I I became, I guess you would say, a semi-elite level in Asia, not Europe. Very different times. And yeah, I was at pretty much all the races in Thailand, the halves and the 10Ks. And that was probably the best 2 years of my life. Um, so I decided I needed to come home because I wasn't teaching officially with a university degree, and I needed a real career. And as my love of cookery, I'd never really wanted to be a chef because you can see how high pressure it is. I don't work very well under pressure, but I couldn't think of anything else. So I went to Le Cordon Bleu, famous French cookery school in Bangkok at the weekends. And but within a year and a half, I was a qualified patissier, or a pastry chef, because I decided to do pastry because I thought maybe it might not be so hot and stressful. So after 6 years in Thailand, I arrived back in the UK, and started my chef career, of which has been 10 to 12 years now. I was in London for 8 years. I'm back in my hometown, Brighton, now. I worked over a wide range of establishments, from large events to Michelin stars to five-star hotels. And um, uh, I didn't have did I fell out of, well, obviously with the hours, I the long hours that chefs work, it was pretty hard to fit exercise in. It's a whole new skill to learn. Totally different coming out of culinary school. Going into a kitchen is, it's like, it's a different world. And the culture, as is well renowned, is, full of drugs and alcohol, really. And I fell straight back into that. Um, and It just sort of just broke me down over years of very high pressured kitchens. So well, sorry, rewind back to um, my running days. I can make the connection there. The reason why I started the story so early. My father was an athletics coach for 20 years. And I never picked up running in that time. I didn't really find an interest in it. But he trained lots of very respectable runners, and he loved running himself. And he was an alcoholic himself until he was 40, and that was his, often addiction transfers into, you find something else. That's why most of the Ironman athletes are ex addicts or something like this. And so he ran for, I think I've got his logs actually, and I think he averaged 18 miles a day for 20 years, running. But that's just casual running. He was never did track sessions or anything like that. He just ran the same pace, ran all of his races at the same pace, casual. And It was just because he loved it and loved being out doing it. So this was in the early days, and this is a a connection that we have now. We know the story of Tim Noakes, who wrote the book on carbohydrate loading. He created the gels, in the 70s, 80s. And in fact, my dad, in my running stint, which was after he'd retired, was he gave me The Law of Running, Tim Noakes' famous book, which has now been rewritten 5 times and has been completely reversed in the scientific literature based on from carbohydrate loading to the proof that you can pretty much run Eliud Kipchoge's time fat adapted now. Not that it's been done, but the science is there. So anyway, going back to my father, he although he was a coach, I don't think he ever really studied much about nutrition at all. He knew that carbohydrate, you carb load and you can burn them when you run such distances, and he used all that fuel. When I look back, he never really had any protein on his plate, and or fat for that matter either. He would put margarine on his toast in the morning. He might have a couple of eggs a week, and then dinner would be, up to 5 big potatoes with vegetables, steamed vegetables, and that was pretty much it. And then there would be 5 pieces of fruit a day, and if ever someone put a cake in front of him, he'd finish it. So that was pretty much his diet, and it continued after he stopped running. So within well, I would say he absolutely loved the sun, and he was really, really, really dark, considering I'm so pale. But it's quite strange. But he developed skin cancer within the second year of him stopping running, which did get caught early and cleared up. But then there was type 2 diabetes 2 years after that. So at this stage, he was still walking more than your double, 3 times your average person. He would go on 20-mile walks, but he's still got this diet like this, that is almost devoid of fat and protein. So type 2 diabetes 2 years later. 2 years after that, Lewy body dementia, the onset. Okay. And then that was 5 years, I think, and it was a slow decline, which became extremely horrendous in the last year and rapid. It was just like warmth. So this is where my passion lies for metabolic health. And I can go back to my story now. So in these past 10 years of being a chef, my mental health was just declining. Obviously, I picked up some interest in sports nutrition over those 2 years, and I started to lift weights and started to fit runs into my busy chef schedule. I started to. This was around the heyday of podcasts. Not that it's gone, but and I started to listen to a few people. I think originally the first was Rich Roll, the vegan ultra runner, and then that sent me off down a rabbit hole. But I did try the vegan diet. There was a lot of the vegan propaganda on the Netflix at the time with the Game Changers and all of this. I tried it for 6 months. Felt pretty terrible, to be honest. It didn't last long on me. Started to include animal proteins back. I started to discover the functional medicine doctors. I read all of their literature pretty much. Dr. Mark Hyman, Will Cole, William Lee, all of these characters. And then I started to get a rounded view of nutrition, from keto to whole foods to, all of the camps. And I had a very, very, very well researched diet of whole foods and masses of phytonutrients from plants. I'd be there. There's now a gut health app in the UK, and they're telling everyone to eat 30 different plants a day. And I've been doing that for the past 5 years, and mixing it with high quality grass fed meat, wild seafood. I learned all about the EPA and DHA, and optimizing omega threes, and I'd pretty much had seed oils out of my life for the past 5 years. I'd never get takeaways. I'd never cooked with them myself. I might consume a protein bar that had a trace in there here and there or something like that. But anyway, so Whole Foods researched diet for the past 5 years, reducing my alcohol consumption and the rest over this time, until it got to a year and a half ago, where it was too much of a contradiction, having knowing all this, and I was just breaking myself. You go out the weekend, don't come back. Go out on Friday, don't come back till Sunday, and then you're making a salad with salmon on Monday morning, and it's just a massive contradiction. So I finally managed to quit alcohol a year and a half ago. Um, I so I've been sober a year and a half, and the rest. And um, I also started, because of my heavy interest in nutrition, I started my health coach diploma around that time. So I since being sober, I still had this extremely researched diet. Like you couldn't make it up. The levels, the lengths I would go to, and this is also another thing about carnivore, a part about carnivore that has been so instrumental in how profound the results are for me, is the fact of the decision fatigue. When I also I didn't mention that I've recently been I've been on I've been for a ADHD autism test, and I scored extremely high on the autism spectrum. So I'm not diagnosed, but this would lead back to my behavior at school, my life of escapism, and it kind of makes sense. And also my family, there is my stepbrothers have heavily autistic children. So anyway, so I have massive decision fatigue, and I also love cooking, and I love complexity and detail. And this is a recipe for disaster, all put together, for in terms of actually being able to move on with your life if you want to accomplish something new or something like that. So I could go into a supermarket and walk around for an hour and not buy anything, and then walk out, because I looked at the labels of everything so much, and I was like, oh, I can't have that. Oh, I can't have this. I can't have that. Da da da. And then I haven't got anything to cook, and then I have to go back, and then I'd spend another hour in there, walking around going, okay, I'm going to cook this now. And then I would go home, and it would take me 2 hours to cook something, because that's what I love doing. And and then you sit down and you're exhausted completely. And that was probably, yeah, I mean, that's been going on for years. So anyway, I have also been in a relationship for the past 4 years, and being on one end of what I now know is a pretty serious depression is not healthy for the other person or for myself to be in this, to have this state of mind. And unfortunately, in the year and a half that I have been sober, I the depression did not lift one bit, and in fact, if anything, it got worse. And so I ended up leaving my partner about 8 months ago now. Um, and so about what was it? Yes, just over 6 months now that as I say, I had been studying all the nutrition camps, and I had known about carnivore, and I had been listening to carnivore podcasts for about the past 4 years. My diet was what I would describe as carbohydrate wise cyclical keto for probably the past 4 years, full of all the phytonutrients in the plants. I had read Christopher Palmer's Brain Energy 4 years ago and knew that how effective ketogenic diets are for mental health. So I'd been wise to keep my carbohydrates low, but clearly not low enough. Hence, being a pastry chef, I was on a spectrum of sugar addiction as well, like probably half the population in denial. And um, I knew how to make desserts. I learned about all the sweeteners, what they do to your body, and I would pretty much have a little dessert after every single meal, like for all that time. So realistically, even if you're having, you know, uh, a kind of parfait or something with double cream with blueberries in it, even that amount of fruit is probably still going to have been kicking me over 50 grams of carbohydrates a day because I never track the macros or anything like that. And so I was, the therapeutic level is probably about under 20 grams. And I would say, from my experience now. So anyway, it got to um, moving out, having my own time to think, and just delving more into podcasts, hearing more about the carnivores, and I just thought, what have I got to lose? So yeah, so it was about 6 months ago now. It must be coming up to 7, and I pretty much dove straight in overnight. I kept a few condiments in through the week. So in the first 24 hours, I felt very different. Like the day I woke up, nothing I could put my finger on there. Nothing I could put my finger on just yet. Then the next day, this was say 48 hours in, it was just like night and day. Like everything lifted. Just just unbelievable. I actually went to the sea and got in the sea at about 6 in the morning, and it was like this enlightening moment. It was just incredible. My whole body, like the inflammation, it just felt so light. It felt like I was floating, and just having this just no cloud in my head. At the same time, my body feeling like that, and I'm 6 months here now, and that feeling hasn't changed. Um, um, I would say I'm that there it's like a line, um, where depression lies and being above it, and I am still only here every day, um, and um, I am genuinely petrified to consume any amount of substantial amount of carbohydrates at all to actually dip below that line. That's the way I feel. Um, and I'm not saying I do feel amazing most of the time, but it is still just keeping myself above a level. And yeah, so that's pretty much my story there. So
That's quite a story, and that day 2 and it's just like it's chalk and cheese. It's just that's crazy. Um, so, like, the feeling of depression, even though you say it's kind of just that, like, You just right just above it like that. That was day 2. It was like that.
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't. I haven't dipped below a baseline since.
Wow,
There's never been,
that's awesome.
I feel great most of the time, but I know I'm still that there is it is at any moment it could all just go crashing down again if I don't continue being very, very strict about this. That's how
Mm,
I
mm,
feel.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, and I think honestly, you're right to be petrified because I've spoken to so many people that reintroduce something, and myself included, and the pain just comes back like that. Whether it's joint pain or back pain, whatever it is. So yeah, the fact that your body can just turn like that is quite scary, right?
So
Um,
I recently just took out coffee, and people that know me know that I am obsessed with coffee. Like I go try and source the finest single origins from wherever I can. I've got all the brewers, and it is just I just absolutely love it. And it has been a tough one for me to take that out, but it's the last thing on the list. It was about a month ago. What have I noticed that is like recovery from the gym is like boom, instant now. There's no aching. And the other thing I noticed is, I mean, I'd listened to a lot of carnivores that their body odor goes, and mine hadn't. Obviously, you go down the rabbit hole and you everything goes natural, and I use tallow soaps now. Everything's pretty much animal products. And I've just got zero body odor since I stopped coffee, and it was like that, which is
mm,
I'm not going to say that I'm never going to have another cup of coffee again because I do love it, but I haven't had it for a month now, and I always drank decafs as well because I loved it so much. I drink them in the evening. I will still
mm,
have a cup of decaf here and there when I feel like it, but at the
mm.
moment I don't feel like I need it. I've managed to quitting caffeine is difficult. I did get a couple of headaches. Um, I do use Richard Smith's exogenous ketones from time to time, and one of them's got caffeine in it, which is absolutely amazing booster for the gym. But apart from that, yeah, I'm pretty much I'm 100% plant free.
Wow. So just on the coffee, and you talked earlier about when you were at school, it was hard for you to focus and that kind of thing. When you when you went on to carnivore, did you notice any change with things like your focus or decision fatigue and stuff? And was there any change when you stopped coffee?
Um, I haven't really noticed much difference in that respect from coffee, but starting carnivore in just on all is not just the mental health; it's on all levels. I mean, I got down to within I'm slim. I guess you would call me a lean mass hyperresponder. I haven't checked my blood work, but I'm pretty slim. But I'd always had a bit of a kind of a beer belly, I guess you'd say, although I did quit beer a few years ago. And obviously, I mean, I was eating like crazy in the first month. And I did go to strict Lion after 2 weeks, but I only kept it for 2 weeks. I wish I'd kept it for longer. I'd been a bit stricter for longer because I brought back dairy and I got kind of addicted to dairy for a few months. But when the 2 months I did Lion, I had done a few macro counts here and there, just odd days here and there, and I consume 5,000 calories a day, 300 grams of fat and 200 grams of protein, and I'm 65 kilograms, and I've been eating that much for 6 months, and I'm still 65 kilograms. And I think in the beginning, I think it was closer to 7,000 calories in the first couple of weeks because I was eating dairy as well. I was just going. I just could not. I mean, it was like I'd been starved for my whole life. That was how I felt, and it was just like food. This is food. This my body was just saying, "Well, you discovered food." You know, it was just insane. So what I've learned in this time as well, that I think I have, I've got issues with, I guess what you would call leptin signaling, that need repairing, because I can eat massive amounts. And I mean, obviously the other great, there were many things, but the no need for snacking. It's like I've had about three snacks in 6 months, and every meal has been a minimum of 4 hours, and it's usually about 8 hours between. I've done OMAD, sort of on and off, for day here and there, but I find it quite difficult because I'm pretty hungry. So it's two meals a day is about right for me, and sometimes still do three. But you go down the rabbit hole and you listen to all the experts, and it's just like, you're technically in a state of autophagy all the time. If you're eating the right way, there is there you just there is no there is you don't need to. There's another thing: decision fatigue of fasting. Oh, should I go another 2 hours, or should I cut my calories at 3 p.m.? Da da da. You just forget about that. You eat when you're hungry, eat till you're completely full, forget about food, and then get on with your life. And currently,
That's right.
currently,
And
yeah,
how productive are you after, once you're at a point like that? It's amazing, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, right now, so I'm pushing on my coaching business as I'm graduated, and this is the first time in my life that I've had to sit down at a computer for days on end. Pretty much, you forget to go for a walk, da da da. Even and So it's just perfect for that. And yeah,
That's fantastic. So, you're doing, 2 meals a day, so, like, what do those meals look like?
typically could be all sorts. Obviously, I like to cook, so I the go to after the first sort of 5 months, where I was just eating all the cuts and buying all the steaks and da da da. You have to think about cost in the end, and I'm not saying the carnivore has to be expensive, because if you buy 20% um, beef mince and eggs, you can live off that for £30 a week. You can eat 1 to 2 kilograms of meat and 6 eggs a day. Is that not enough food? Sorry, but that's enough food. Anyway, so that's a pretty standard one. It's 500 grams of mince made into two burgers, two eggs, something like that. But it could be. I often stick a whole lamb shoulder in the oven for 5 hours and come home, and I have eaten the whole thing in one go before, but it's usually two goes. I do lamb breast quite a lot, because you have to start to look at the cheaper cuts. So I do a lot of chuck steaks. And lamb breast is super cheap, and we know that the nutrient density in lamb is, with a higher omega-3 fatty acid profile. It's good to mix up your beef and your lamb. And so, yeah, I'm predominantly ruminant animals. I do add some pork. I buy the highest quality I can get, the highest welfare, highest quality. And that's occasional. And then I add in oily fish here and there, occasional bits of liver, but I'm not too fussed about it. And I feel fine without it. Um, what I do is lumpfish caviar, because it's got the biggest bang for your buck in EPA and DHA. So salmon caviar or lumpfish, and it's super super reasonable. And it's like, instead of buying an oxidized fish oil supplement, if you feel like you need extra omega-3 boost, if you can only afford at the time grain-fed beef, for instance, then you can have a little boost with that. I mean, a tablespoon of that is the equivalent of 3 fish oil tablets or something like that. Yeah. So so that's pretty much my day. But I, on average, consume 1.5 kilos of beef or lamb per day, and then supplementary eggs. And I love butter, but I am going down the route of reducing my fats. I know I need to keep my fats high for my mental health. So I have to get the balance right to not knock over the gluconeogenic effects of protein and go into that zone too much. That's how I feel anyway. But at the same time, I do. There's a little bit of weight gain, here, and but I'm super slim, so I shouldn't be worrying about anything like that, really. And as we know, when we look at Sean O'Mara and his research and well his scans with visceral fat, and we know that by keeping fructose and sugar out of your diet, the fat that's here is subcutaneous and not visceral, which is the
Visceral.
extremely dangerous fat. Yeah, so I'm not too worried. I do feel that better the more fat I have. So I'm just playing around with that, and also now I'm doing more work at home on the computer, so I'm less active. So it's all a bit of a balance for me. So I'm just going down these areas of research and playing around with a few things. But yeah,
Mu must be a pretty exciting time, like, you're feeling better, you've got more energy, you're not distracted by food, and you're getting this business started. It's all kind of everything's coming together, right?
yeah, it is perfect to have a clear mind like this. I mean, I would not. There is absolutely no. I struggled through the course anyway because I was still recovering from alcohol addiction, or alcoholism, I guess. Um, and I was, just doing it in dribs and drabs. And the second I cut it. I turned carnivore. It was just like productivity was just rolling, and now I'm just rolling every day. I still have a part-time job, and I go to that, and I come back, and I work 8 hours for myself every day. Minimum. It's just completely life changing on so many levels.
And so, how have people around you reacted to this? Have they noticed a change in you?
Um, this, I The funny thing is because I'm really trying to focus on my own thing now. I'm not actually physically seeing my friends as much, which is a bit sad. But um, what I would say is few people that have listened to me, close to me, i.e. my sister, who I haven't really spoken to for the past 10 years. I just started to send her some educational stuff related to at least keeping your carbohydrates low because she struggled with mental health just as much as me for her whole life, and she's she's was prepared to listen because she's on her own health journey right now. She's actually prepared to listen to me, and she's slowly just been reducing plant foods out of her diet and carbohydrates, and increasing animal foods. And I've been saying, eat the fat. You've been avoiding the fat. Eat the fat. You need the fat. And her life is dramatically changing day by day. And also, my best friend, who I don't really see that much, um, he was prepared to listen to me too. And he's always struggled with anxiety and uh, no, I don't think so. Depression, but definitely anxiety on quite a big level, on quite a high level. And he listened to me, and he just jumped in, and he's experiencing the benefits as well now. And he's since played around, and he's kind of animal based now, dips in here and there, but it's predominantly animal foods and not being afraid of the fat, and keeping your carbohydrates low. So yeah, I'm just calm and relaxed, and um, yeah, I feel it's just like being born again almost.
And the two really cool things about this is that you get to feel so good, and also, when people are open to it, you can share this with them, like with your sister or your best friend, and they can feel better too. It's just it's two awesome gifts you get with this.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Mm. Yeah, so if you were talking to someone and they said, "Well, this sounds pretty interesting. I'm a bit skeptical, but I'm willing to try it." How would you recommend they get started with it?
Well, since learning going down the rabbit hole and learning from everyone. There are kind of influencers out there that are telling people to jump straight in. I think that it probably isn't the wisest thing. I did it myself, and I do know a lot of other people that have done it and technically got away with it. But you effectively risk gut dysbiosis from changing your diet overnight. So I would recommend, what I would say is make your breakfast animal foods only for a week. Continue with the rest of your diet, but I guess I would give a whole foods list based on without any grains or starches, and maybe with berries in there as the only fruit. Stick to that. You can still make your curries and blah 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 and things like that, but you have cauliflower rice instead or something like that. And um, slowly switch your lunch to animal based, and then your dinner. Over 3 weeks or a month or something like that, and then you can um, jump into full carnivore for a month or so and see how you feel.
Nice. Yeah. So Frank, is there a way that people can reach out to you? Do you have a website or any social media?
Yes, I do. So I'm uh, at Frank Wright Coaching on Instagram. And I also started a school group a long time ago, which I hadn't been proactive enough on it, but now I'm giving it a big push. So I've been umming and ahhing about a niche for it properly. I jumped in at Carnivore when I first jumped into it myself, and since kind of talked myself out of it and thought, oh, maybe I will do a kind of keto one or something like that to raise awareness of carbohydrate consumption, and just went round in circles. And now I'm back to it being carnivore, and it's called the Carnivore Lifestyle. So I'm finding school is an absolutely amazing platform. I'm in low carb school with Coach Stephen and Richard Smith and Dr. Abs are there every week, and the fact that you get to ask them questions face to face every week is absolutely priceless. So I'd recommend that to anyone. And I'm also working with a lot of other very, very well, that are now mentors of mine in other school groups that are providing me with massive value on mindset. All aspects of my life are just changing day by day at a rapid pace. So I really, really, really think school is the next big thing. It's amazing.
Oh, very nice. So I'll link to those below. Um, Frank, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. It's fantastic to hear how well you're doing, and yeah, thank you so much for your time.
No worries, Dave. It was great to speak to you, and keep up the amazing work. Thank you very much.